What's up, everybody? We are live over on YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and add in our friends on Facebook and on Twitter, and we are going to get underway. All right. Hope everyone's doing okay. I know we've got our thick of everything. All right, and we are live. What's up? My name is Garrett Chapman, and this is the Falcons Podcast. If it's your first time, welcome. Make sure to set your reminder. We do this every single Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock, and if it's not your first time, I see we've already got a couple of people in here. So they already knew. They were ready to go. Welcome back. It's always great to see you. But if you were not subscribed, make sure you do. Make sure you hit that little button. It doesn't cost you anything. You just hit the button. Like the video. Share it with friends. We'll continue to grow this thing. I love it. No matter where you're coming from, whether you're live in the podcast right now or you're listening to it after the fact. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Garrett Chapman. Give me a follow at GChapATL. That's the best way to stay up to date on everything that we have going on, because we got lots happening, because today is the very first day that teams can add a franchise tag. And as of 6:02, just double checking, no moves yet. I have not seen anything. I have not heard anything, not as of right now. But look, that may change. It may not. I mean, Kyle Pitts getting the franchise tag, that's going to be the primary thing on people's minds. And we can talk about that a little bit if you guys want to. But again, if you guys have comments, if you guys have questions, make sure to drop those in the chat here. Especially, that's the benefit of being here live, is that you can interact, because I like to answer as many questions as I can. Just makes the podcast more enjoyable, makes me have a good time, and it makes the time go by fast, because time flies when you're having fun. But big welcome to everybody. I see some folks in here. I'm going to start kind of addressing some of the stuff in here already. Trenton, my man Trenton, he's always a loyal guy. Appreciate you, my dude. Says, G Money, I'm here early. Just want you to know I appreciate you taking your time out to talk to us twice a week and stay focused on getting the flyer. Really appreciate it. Well, I appreciate you, man. I mean, the podcast is fun. I enjoy doing this. Just chatting with you guys, talking Falcons football. Kind of keeps me in the loop. Kind of see where the people's heads are at. Keep having a little good time with it. John Harrell says, what would it cost coming off of a broken leg? Talking about Tyreek Hill, headline of the video. We're going to get into that here on the pod here just in a little bit. Michael Ronquillo hits us with the double hearts. Always great to see you, Michael Ronquillo. Big Love 24K says, hey, Scott, it's Garrett. It's okay. It's confusing. It's the Scott Kennedy channel. I just come in here. I commandeer all of his followers, just trying to take them for myself. But he says, hey, Scott, this is John Higgins from Smooth Smitty Chris A1. And I came on. You listen as well. I'll be listening. Big guy. Go Falcons. Rise up. Go Falcons. I'll give you that one. Smooth C78 says, sup, G-Chap. John Robert says, do you think more wide receivers are needed? Absolutely. We'll talk about why in the second half of the show, because I have some cut candidates that the Falcons are probably going to have, at least some that they're going to have to consider. But it doesn't matter if you're even talking just about cut candidates or not. I mean, this is a team who has a desperate need for wide receiver depth. It was very clear last year that this team needs wide receivers. I would actually argue that's probably the single largest need on the team as just pure need, but they can upgrade just about everywhere, except running back, obviously. I mean, Bijan Robinson's the best in the league. Offensive line, you could probably stand to upgrade at center. I mean, wide receivers depth is critical. You're not going to upgrade on Drake London necessarily, but I think that you're going to add depth, and you desperately need it. Amari Cooper's a guy who comes to mind. I mean, there are a lot of guys in this draft class that I'd say are middle round beasts that the Falcons will be able to take advantage of. And I really hope that this is finally the year that we see this team trade back in the draft and acquire more assets, because I was looking at something earlier today, and this is scheduled for tomorrow morning. I think it's on tomorrow morning. So make sure to check out Falcons on SI. It basically grades out where the Falcons stand in terms of free agency, so when it comes to where they would rank in terms of draft capital, where they would rank in terms of just free agency spending ability, so cap space, they're dead last in the NFL. And a lot of that has to do with the 32nd ranked draft capital. Not having a first round pick really hurts. You only have 2 picks in the top 100. That really hurts. And for a team who desperately needs depth, that's where you really need to kind of hit some home runs. And Terry did a good job last year hitting some home runs. He hit some. It's just he whiffed on other years. And as a result, you have depth issues across the board. But wide receivers, that's going to be your biggest, most glaring need, I would say, whether they make any moves or not. Halsey comes through, says, not sure Tyreek is special anymore off injury. Darnell Mooney or Mecole Harmon, good player, might be better now. I can't agree with that. One's a 5-time All-Pro, and there's something about that really still matters. And I understand he at his age, he's not going to really give you a lot. And I'll give you why and why not. And then I'll come out and tell you what I actually think is going to happen and what I think should happen. But it's more just let's just entertain the idea for a little bit. John Roberts says, will Kyle Pitts get franchise tagged? I think so. I just have to imagine that's going to be the case. Whether or not he plays this season on a franchise tag is another question entirely. But if you're the Falcons, you've give Kyle Pitts a franchise tag, which today is their first day that they can do that, and they have until March 3rd. So they still have plenty of time to get that done. But if you franchise tag Kyle Pitts, it means that you're the only person who's going to be able to talk to him in free agency. If you give him a transition tag, at least gives you the right of first refusal, and you have a chance to match anything that people can throw your way. But at the end of the day, it's going to be $16 million if you franchise tag him, assuming he plays on it. And you're not going to be, at that point, is he going to be willing to take less money at that point? I think that's going to be up to him and his agent and the way that the team goes about this. But I'm fine. I would prefer the Falcons just extend him, get into a little bit of a bidding war. You got to roll the dice a bit. It's just our team's going to be willing to pay him 13, 14, 15, 16 million dollars. There is a realistic chance that someone gets into a bidding war, and it's just any bidding war. I mean, those kinds of things happen, and someone's going to have a bluff called, and whether or not he ends up here, it remains to be seen. So if you're not willing to put that bet out there, then franchise tag him. That's why the team has the right to do that, So I think it will happen. I have to imagine it will, but whether I want it to happen, I don't really necessarily want it. I think that if he wants to be here, he's going to be here. And I think that you can get him for less money. But again, that's a gamble. And are you willing to make that gamble? Also comes back and says, at least we know Falcons won't miss unlucky pick 13. Yeah, I guess not. I guess it's up for the Rams to do. That's their pick now. John Roberts says Bradley Chubb for depth. Bradley Chubb was also in that realm of cuts over there with the Miami Dolphins. I don't see Bradley Chubb coming to Atlanta. Bradley Chubb, to me, seems like just a big name that's not necessarily a big producer. He's a fine player, but he's going to command a big contract. If I wanted depth, I'm just sticking it out with Arnold Ebiketie. I'm going to offer him a contract extension. I'm going to get him in here, and we'll see if he can continue progressing, because he's a former second-round pick. Not Bradley Chubb, talking about Arnold Ebiketie. And he showed his pure pass rush win rate was pretty good. He just got factored out later in the season because, James Pierce Jr. was pretty damn good. But with James Pierce Jr. not potentially being on this team next year, which we don't know. We don't have any updates on that, just answering any questions in advance. There are no updates. We are where we were last time we talked. But his future in Atlanta is in doubt. It really is. So you need to go get some guys. And I think Arnold Ebiketie, at the very least, on a deal worth $7-ish million, much less than what Bradley Chubb is probably going to command, I would say you can get not similar production, but you can get something, and he can at the very least be a very competent third down pass rusher. So I'm not big on Bradley Chubb necessarily. I just think he's too expensive. Certainly for the production that you'd get from him. AJ comes through and says, what's going on, everyone? What's up, my man? What's up? All right, I'm going to dip into this just a little bit. If you guys have questions, if you have any super chats, that's going to get you right to the front of the line. And again, that just all it does is help the podcast a little bit. And I appreciate all of you for jumping in here. But no, the major fish, of course, is Tyreek Hill. I don't mean that pun. The pun not intended, I guess. 5-time All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler. He'll have a market. He's going to have a market. And the big thing to keep in mind is that this is a guy who's coming off of a major knee injury. This isn't just some little thing. This is a major knee injury. And according to Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network, he said it's not entirely clear that Tyreek Hill is even going to play for the entirety of the 2026 season. There is a non-zero chance that Tyreek Hill misses the early parts of the season, at the very least. So I just want to put this out there, keep this in mind. There is a chance that he doesn't sign with the team at all until you get somewhere close to midseason, and then he can just kind of be a mercenary, and he can see, the New England Patriots, they're winning, but they need a wide receiver, or the Kansas City Chiefs, or the Chargers, the Rams, whatever. It doesn't matter. He can go look and find and pick and choose. And I think that there is a reasonable expectation that could be the case. Because he dislocated his knee. He tore multiple ligaments in his knee. And then on a podcast yesterday, he talked about how originally his Rosenhaus's agent said that it was in one big procedure, right? And he said yesterday that apparently there is a second surgery that's going to be necessary, which, based off of internet doctors, which again, take that with a grain of salt. I am not a doctor. I'm just repeating information when I say this. That means that there was worry that there was nerve damage in his knee, which means there is a very good chance that his change of motion, his ability to cut, his ability to explode off the ball, his ability to get down the field fast, which is his nickname is quite literally the cheetah. I mean, that's going to be a pretty important part of his game. And assuming that he comes back at full health, which I feel like is a pretty decent assumption at 32 years, I don't know. It depends on what guy you're actually getting. So that's why I would expect he takes his time with this decision. He's going to go have his surgery. He's going to go through the process. He's going to make sure he's completely healthy. And then I think he's going to come up and just sign on with a big team, and he's at a stage in his career. It's at 32. He doesn't need a big payday. That's not necessarily what he's looking for. I'm not going to speak for him when I say that. But he signs that $90 million restructured deal last offseason. Cap hit moved to $52 million to his final year. So the Dolphins saved a fortune by cutting him. And all those guarantees and everything else, they don't hit. So he's not making that money, but he's made a ton of money in his career. So I think everyone's going to do their due diligence on this guy, just at the very least. But when it comes to the Falcons being a realistic option for him, I just don't see it. And that's assuming that he even plays, But at the end of the day, I do think that this is a Falcons team who needs a player. Obviously, like Tyreek, anyone could use a 5-time Pro Bowler. But my God, they need somebody who can stretch the field. They need somebody who can get down there. And I think there are going to be better options out there for the Falcons, maybe some more budget-friendly options, depending on what Tyreek even looks like. I mean, maybe he takes a $10 million contract. Who knows? But I think there are going to be some better options out there for the Falcons. And then on top of that, so you have to address the fact that the knee injury is one thing. He also has the NFL's personal conduct issues that are surrounding him. So you're dealing with James Pierce already. I don't necessarily have a lot of interest in adding another person who is going through that process. There is still a chance that he gets suspended. There's a chance that it doesn't work out and he ends up getting suspended even after he comes back from injury, right? And then at this point, I mean, he's 32, and you talk about coming off of a knee injury, whether he was or not, you turn 32. I know I'm in my early 30s. You start slowing down a little bit. It's just how life goes, There's a general decline, and I've seen a bit of a general decline. Just going back, and I went back and watched some of his, maybe not tape, I should say. I was watching some of his a couple of the games that the Dolphins played last year, and I was trying to see like just the impact that he was having, because if you extrapolate out all of his numbers, they're actually okay. Like, it's about 1,100 yards over the course of a 17-game season. He only played 4, but he's definitely lost a step. And I don't know how much of that had to do with just the offense and the Dolphins not being very good at the time he was healthy. But the guy who was going and getting nearly 1,800 yards, that's not him anymore. I mean, this is a guy who had 4 straight seasons of 1,200 plus yards. He had consecutive seasons of 1,700 plus yards. I mean, that's what he was when he was at his best. You could have made the argument that he was the best wide receiver in the NFL. I'd actually say there were plenty of people who did make that argument, that he was the best wide receiver in the NFL. He was a dynamic playmaker. You put the ball in his hands and you let him go. And there's a chance that he can still do that in spurts. So he will bring value to a team and somebody will give him a look because he is that guy. But I just, at 32, coming off of this knee injury, I don't see it. I just have a hard time believing that. But that doesn't diminish the fact that the Falcons still need to go get somebody who can go do that kind of job. Obviously, he's not going to be Tyreek Hill. But if you can go find somebody who can get down the field and add that explosive element, that's going to be very, very important for this team. But that's just really all it comes back to. But if it can be made, if it can be affordable, if the Falcons are in a position where they're looking to contend or do something, and maybe things go really, really well or something, which I don't necessarily see being the case. I don't think that the Falcons are in contention mode. Then maybe it could work. But as of right now, in this free agency cycle, I don't think it's going to be the case. All right, I'm going to go back into your comments. I see some more people have jumped into the show, but welcome. Come on in. If you have any questions, make sure to drop them into the chat. Sorry, my computer's just moving a little bit slowly. Says, not sure if I missed the Tyreek portion. Well, there you go. You just hit your Tyreek portion. But I'm out on that. Soon to be a 32-year-old wide receiver that just tore multiple ligaments and a dislocated knee, not to mention off-field issues. I'm good. Tend to agree. There you go. AJ says, give me Romeo Doubs instead. I actually am all in on Romeo Doubs. I had a show last night on 92.9 The Game where I'm a host. I produce. I do all kinds of stuff over there at the station. I said Romeo Doubs is probably that guy for me. Calvin Austin is that guy. And those are two who I think they're not going to bring the off-field baggage. They're not going to bring I just blew out my knee baggage. And they're younger. They're like 25, 26 years old or so. They can provide that downfield explosive element. And I think that they could be very good in this offense. I think they'd be very good. And at the very least, they're going to give you a slot guy who's going to be a dynamic number two. I wonder how ready Tyreek Hill would even be to be a number two. I wonder if he would have any interest in doing that necessarily. Maybe at 32, he would be. But I think those are two names that make a lot more sense. Romeo Doubs, I think, is going to end up being a big steal. He's somebody who just sort of got buried in a pretty deep depth chart. And there are a lot of, I'd say, B-level guys on the Green Bay Packers just in general. And I don't mean that in a harsh way. It's just, they have a lot of B-level guys. And it makes for a good wide receiver room. It doesn't make for an elite one necessarily, but they've got good players. They don't have great players. But Romeo Doubs doesn't have to be a great player. He just comes into Atlanta and he just has a job to do. And I think he can be that guy. Also, he comes through. Says Broncos demonstrated the risk of waiting on quarterback when they drafted Chubb and Locke in the second round. Yeah, no, they did. That also wasn't a good draft class. If I remember correctly, that wasn't a very good draft class. John Roberts says Tyreek Hill may need another surgery. Yes. No, he might. He said that on his podcast yesterday. If he is not 100% healthy, then it's just not somewhere where the Falcons need to be. They don't need to be putting assets into somebody who's not going to be playing, or they may not be a good culture fit. I mean, there are a lot of reasons not to sign Tyreek Hill. And ultimately, I don't see enough good reasons to do it. I'm out. I don't think it's going to be the thing that the Falcons end up doing. I don't think it's going to work out well for them in general. Halsey says maybe the Falcons should draft 2 wide receivers. I actually would not be all that opposed to drafting 2 wide receivers. I think how this team addresses their free agency needs, it's going to be very, very telling to what they're going to be doing in the draft. And I hope that means that they're going to trade back in the draft to go pick up some more assets. You need depth on this team. But I think drafting 2 wide receivers would do them well. I would say maybe draft someone in the second round, maybe one in the third round. I think that would make a lot of sense. So I was saying second or third round, and then draft another one maybe later on in the draft, like in the 6th round or something like that. See if the first guy can potentially come in and be a difference maker year one, and he can come make a big impact in his first year. And then the other guy, maybe he can, like Casey Washington was a late round draft pick, right? And he can come in and make an impact that way. Maybe take a year and continue to develop or something. Maybe take a raw talent. Maybe take a kick returner, a guy who can kind of give you some ability there. I think about a Dylan Bell there from Georgia. That would be that type of, not saying him in particular, but that type of player who might have a little bit of adjustment that he still has to do, but could be a potential option for the Falcons. But at the very least, he can come in year one and he can return kicks. It's one less thing that you have to worry about in the free agency market. AJ comes back and says, Garrett, curious your thoughts on two things. One, how do you feel about adding John Franklin Myers all in? I said this actually on my show last night. Tim Settle is the other one in free agency. Defensive line is the spot that I am pounding the table for. That is absolutely the position that I think the Falcons need to invest in. It's not a glaring need in the same way that a lot of other positions are, but look, you finished in the mid-20s in rush defense. You have a long way to go before you need to get to where you need to be in rush defense. You faced the good running backs and you got exposed several times. And I think some of that had to do with Divine Diablo being injured, and then you have JD Bertrand at the second level, and then you were consistently getting beat to angles. And there were a lot of reasons for it, but you need some big uglies. And this team lacked 300-pounders. They just don't have those guys. And now that you're losing David Onyemata into free agency, which they could re-sign him, they could bring him back, but at 31, 32 years old, I just don't know if that's necessarily your best course of action. If you don't bring him back, then you need to make an investment. And based off of what Spotrek has said, which again, take it with a grain of salt, I've used it just because it's been the most consistent thing and it kind of sets a baseline for you. John Franklin Myers is gettable at about $8-9 million, according to Spotrek. Tim Settle, I don't know what his is offhand, but I know Franklin Myers is about that. Slam dunk. You need to continue to make investment there because you look at the lessons that you can learn from these teams who are playing in the conference championship games. You see heavy defensive line, able to make an impact, can rush with four. They have waves and waves of guys who can get after you. Defensive line is critically important. And actually, defensive line, I would say, is the second position that I would draft. I think that there are some really good defensive linemen. Lee Hunter is somebody who popped into my head. There are some really good defensive linemen in this draft class. And if you can go get another big contributor on the defensive line, maybe you can get him in the second, or maybe even in the third, I would do it. And I would still add somebody else in free agency, maybe two people in free agency. You cannot have enough good, competent defensive linemen. And if maybe I could see this too, Braylon Trice, you know that name? That old guy, our old buddy, Braylon Trice. Maybe you can convert him into kind of like what the Zach Harrison mold is, where you go from, which he wasn't an edge rusher necessarily, but Braylon Trice, you can convert him. He's got kind of that body type. He can move in and play defensive line. So I think that could potentially make some sense. Number two, would it be possible to tag and trade Pitts and trade Jesse Bates? Yeah, theoretically. I mean, you could theoretically do that. I don't know the rules on offhand actually about trading players on a franchise tag. I don't think it's allowed. I'm pretty sure it's not allowed, but again, I can double check. If somebody can Google that for me real quick, just drop that in the chat. I'm not trading Jesse Bates. You're not going to get enough value for him. And I've now had this question probably a few times, and I'm not coming at you when I say this. I've just had a few questions on it. You're not going to get the value for Jesse Bates. He's more valuable on your team than he would be somewhere else. I would extend Jesse Bates. That's what I would do right now, just because he offers you a lot. He's an all-pro safety, and you're not going to get a lot of value for him. Like, what are you going to get? Third-round pick? You know, I mean, the NFL does not send day one picks or hardly day two picks for players. Like, it's just not something that happens all that much. And Jesse Bates, unfortunately, doesn't play. He doesn't play outside cornerback. He doesn't play quarterback. He doesn't play wide receiver. He plays safety. And it's just not a position that they're going to put exceptionally high value on, especially for a guy who's in the last year of his deal and is not going to, and he's near 30. So that's why I'm extending Jesse Bates. He's got some void years, so you be able to mess with some of those, and you can knock those off the books potentially, and you can make the money work. You can make the money work fine, and I think he still has upside, but I think he has more value on this team than he would in the trade market. That's just me. Jay Black says, chat, do you think we get a complimentary free agency wide receiver and draft a wide receiver? I think so. At the very least. I think they sign a wide receiver and they draft a wide receiver. I would imagine that they sign or draft two. So they could sign 2 and draft 1, sign 1 and draft 2. I think they can sign 2. I think you're just going to find more value at the veteran level. But they will draft at least 1. And I say value just because they only have 5 picks as of right now. I would imagine that there's a chance that they get more. Jay Black says, I think so. I would like Dubes, Romeo Dobbs in free agency and Omar Cooper in the draft. That's who I'm in on. Black responses. What do you think about the Georgia wide receiver coming out? Zachariah Branch. So his name is Branch, not sure. Zachariah Branch. He's a speedster. He's somebody who I think if you can get him in maybe the 3rd round, I think that would make a lot of sense. He might drop to the 4th round. Maybe just because he doesn't have a very complex route tree. Didn't get utilized in that way at Georgia or at USC. He is an elite return man. So that's one of those types of guys that I think if you can go get you go get a guy who can do multiple jobs. At the very least, he's a guy who you can scheme open. You can get him involved in the scheme in the screen game on offense, and then in the kick return game, he can kind of be a Rashid Shaheed. I think that's kind of the comp that I would see for him. He makes a lot of sense. Just based off the needs that the Falcons have, I think he would be a great pick. It just depends on where he falls. I've seen some people have him all the way up in the 2nd round. I'm not spending a 2nd round pick on Zachariah Branch. I'm not, based off of what I've seen. I think he's got a ton of potential. It's enough for me to really take a look at it. I would consider it in the 3rd round. And if he's in the 4th round, I'm 100% taking him. I think that's no question. But I like the idea. Danny Savage, Draft Guru, says start at 2, number 1, the tag for franchise tag. Start at 2. I don't know what you're talking about for franchise tag. Start at 2, number 1, the tag. I don't know what you mean. Sorry. AJ comes back, says, according to the NFL website, you can tag and trade a player once that player signs the tender. Oh, well, so then they have to sign the tender. So that would be a request from Kyle Pitts. That's generally not going to happen until we get to way later in the year. So that would probably be by the deadline. I want to say sometime in July, something like that. It says draft 365 24/7 Danny Savage. Oh, that's you. All right. Well, welcome. Come on in. Jay Black says, love Branch too. He would be someone that would give us a shifty and fast guy, someone who could help us in the return game too. Yep, you're right. All right. So Maurice Boney over on YouTube says, we need to get special teams right this upcoming season, wide receiver, defensive line, then cornerback. Corner is a need. Corner is another one of those needs that I need to take a look at, or this team needs to take a look at specifically. Mike Hughes is fine. He's okay. He didn't have a great season last year. D. Alford, I would expect, is going to be coming back next year. He just offers you a lot of versatility. If you can get D somewhere like the 3.5 range, I like that idea. I think that would give you a good veteran guy who can kind of play a lot of different positions. I would like to see them draft a corner, but they just don't have enough assets. And I think the defensive line is going to be a more important position for this team to draft. That's just where I stand on it. And wide receiver is critical. But it's going to be a best player available type of draft. I just expect that's going to be the case. He just says that's if they use the non-exclusive franchise tag and someone wants that player. Yeah, so it is possible. It's not going to be something that would happen before the draft. And then you're also probably not going to get a ton of value for him. That's just to get out of it, I would imagine. That's like a last-ditch effort where they just don't want to deal with him anymore and they just want to move on. I don't think that's going to be the case. Danny says, bad part, it's a great safety draft, so I can't see trade for safety, giving up lots for safety. I just don't think it's not something that's going to work out really well. Chubb before Hill, says David. I say no to both. I don't think either of them are going to be here. AJ says, Garrett, is there a player in free agency and in the draft that you would love to see in Atlanta? Omar Cooper. Oh, that not many people are talking about. That's a good question. Kind of an under the radar. Let me look into this and get back to you. That's an article I can write. That's something I can put together. That would take a little research. That's going to take me kind of digging into some things. But yes, there are certainly some players out there, but let me take a look and get back to you. All right. I'm starting to feel my voice going out, so I don't know how long of a show it's going to be today. I did a 4-hour show yesterday, and then I also did 4 hours in studio. So, but as far as some cut candidates that the Falcons have, I'm just trying to keep you guys updated. Kirk Cousins is the obvious one. He reworked his contract, and his base salary was reduced from $35 million to $2.1 million for this year. It just screams he's getting cut. He's already talking to other teams too. I don't know. Also, don't know how that's not tampering. It was the tampering for the Falcons, but it wasn't tampering for anybody else. Already talking to the Minnesota Vikings and everything. But based off of what I've seen, it seems like they're just going to bite the bullet. His cap hit right now is $24.6 million. But if they cut him right now, it's going to be $35 million in dead money, which basically means you save the 24.6, but you lose 10.4 against the cap, which isn't great, but you have $0 in dead money for 2027. It doesn't seem like they're going to do a post June 1. I think they just want to get it over with. 2026, it just doesn't feel like it's going to be our year right now. That's just the way it's kind of looking. I would not be surprised to see the Falcons load up on dead money for this year, figure out what you have in Michael Penix, and then you can potentially, I'm not saying they're tanking. I'm not saying that. I just don't see them making a lot of luxury type moves, bite the bullet on a lot of dead money, gear up for 2027. New regime. That's really going to be year one for all of them. You figure out what you have in Michael Penix. Maybe he's your guy, and then you can go gear up, and then year 4 turns into a great year for Michael or something like that. But this is just kind of my feeling right now. That's just kind of my feeling. Darnell Mooney is another cut candidate. I mentioned him a little bit earlier. He's got an $18.4 million cap hit. If you cut him right now, it's $11 million in dead money, $7.42 million in savings against the cap. That just seems like it's going to be a likely deal because you have a guy who last year, it seemed like it was a regression in the worst way because but when I actually went and looked at his numbers, he goes from his year last year was basically what he was in Chicago for the last 2 years, which tells me that's not good. It tells me that's really not good. It tells me that that's more the norm and not the guy who was here the first year. Which tells me he's probably going to be a cap cut casualty. $18.4 million for him. Just, it feels rich. It just feels like it's too much. One unpopular name that I came across though, Charlie Warner. He would carry a good bit of savings. You'd save $4.75 million against the cap this year. And for a guy who's just a blocking tight end, tells me that you probably need to consider doing that. He doesn't give you a lot in the receiving game. I think the Falcons need tight ends. They don't have any tight ends really. If you would cut Charlie Warner, you don't have any. Teagan's gone. Kyle Pitts is potentially gone. We're going to see what happens with that one. Charlie Warner would be the last guy that you have. Don't forget Felipe Franks. So that would be a reason that it wouldn't happen necessarily, but for a new scheme, new coach, anything can happen. Kyle Hinton's another cut candidate. He can save you 2.75. Kadero Hodge, he's one. He can carry 2.64. So you just look here at some of these numbers. You can check out the full list and all my rationale over there, Falcons on SI. But I just think that could be the case. All right, I'm going to take a couple more comments, and then I'm going to peace out for the evening. My voice I'm starting to feel it, and I just got to be careful with it. Danny Savage says, is it safe to say Pierce is a wasted draft pick? Crazy. No, not yet. Too soon. He may or may not be done. If he comes back and maybe he misses a couple of games, that's still a possibility. Then you move on. Unfortunately, that's just the way the NFL works. It's too soon. Because his NFL career could be over. We don't know. And if that's the case, then good Lord. Comes back and says, tank and draft in 2027. Yeah. Maybe you trade some of your assets back and you pick up more and for 2027. And because that draft class in 27 is supposed to be incredible. It's supposed to be really damn good. And there's a non-zero chance that year one is not good in Atlanta for Kevin Stefanski and Cunningham. Just the way it may shape out. Just that's kind of my feeling. AJ says, would you cut Darnell? Yeah. Yep. I think that's going to be the case. Jay Black says, chat, are we praying that Braylon Trice is able to play this season and make an impact? Praying. Has not played a single game. Not a single game in that time. Excuse me. Sorry. Danny says, tight end's the worst class in April. Just my 2 cents. I think it's got some good ones. There's some good players in there, but we'll see. I'm still looking into my tight ends. I'm not fully all the way there. All right. Folks, I appreciate you. It's a little shorter of a podcast. I'm sorry I can't go full time. I just don't physically have my voice is starting to go out, and I got to be careful. But I appreciate all of you guys. Big thank you. Give me a follow at GChapATL on Twitter. We do this every Tuesday and Thursday, so make sure to set your reminders. Make sure to jump in here. And look, we'll talk Falcons. We're going to do it all off season long. We got a lot to get into. Maybe we'll see a decision on caps. And then, look, we have Indianapolis coming next week. We're a week away from the draft combine. So I appreciate you guys jumping in. 30 minutes is pretty good. 30 minutes, I'll take it. It's always a pleasure jumping in and hanging out with you guys. But until Thursday, we'll jump into we'll see what we get into. We got a lot to get into here as the offseason continues to roll on. But my name is Garrett Chapman. This has been the Falcons Podcast. And until next time,